Today we're joined by Emma Davis, the CEO, and Courtney Coleran, the COO at Working Planet Marketing.
We're not talking to prospective clients about, so what does your ad messaging look like and what assets are you working with? It's like, what are you trying to achieve? What are your goals?
Like the team is going to try to understand your business, your goals, like what does all this, what are constraints to growth and any of the barriers or things that you foresee coming up as an issue early on?
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits to grounding everything we do in the financial outcomes is that we can get that question of, well, is this just, would I have been getting that traffic anyways if I wasn't running this ad? And it isn't like, no, you have to run the ads because what we do is the ads. It's like, I don't know, let's test it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today we're joined by Emma Davis, the CEO, and Courtney Coleran, the COO at Working Planet Marketing. And they have a pretty unique perspective that they bring to the table when it comes to marketing and how technology fits into it. So really excited to have you guys on the show. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks. Excited to be here.
Awesome. To start us off, can you just describe a little bit more about your approach to marketing and what you guys do at Working Planet?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to jump in with that. So, we are a paid digital media firm, so all things auction-based and online. And our unique approach to paid media optimization really involves leveraging our clients' actual financial data. So, we take a look at all the marketing metrics along the funnel, but what we care about ultimately is the profitable outcome for our clients. And so, we do sort of the hard work that makes it a fairly unique offering in our space of actually connecting the dots through to, what's driving results for you, how much are you paying for those results versus the value you're getting back, and how much should you be paying, and mapping out, if that's where you want to go in terms of growth, here's what it's going to take to get there, and then, sort of helping to clear the way for our clients to get where they want to go. So, we've been a data-driven firm all along, and now everybody is a data-driven firm. So to clarify, we're a financially data-driven firm. And so we're all about the trackable, measurable financial results.
Mm. And when you say like financially data-driven firm, would you say like, I feel like a lot of agencies are doing like attribution tracking, maybe some conversion metrics and stuff. Like, would you say that you guys differ because you're looking at the actual cash collected and how that weighs in across the whole business, or kind of what is the difference there between your approach and the majority of marketers or other agencies?
So we're looking at the transacted revenue, actual profit. So taking into account, cost of goods or fixed costs, making sure our clients are achieving their growth goals. So we're looking at the entire financial picture of the business. So we'll even weigh in on, is your goal big enough, or do you need to think bigger? Because really, even to cover your fixed costs, you should be generating at least this much through the paid program. And if this is your acquisition cost target, you need to budget this much to, like, we're going to really get into, what's it going to take from a financial point of view and a business health point of view in order to achieve what you're trying to achieve. I would say one of the other sort of defining differentiators for us is the segmentation of the data. So it's not about, in total you spent this and in total you got that back. We're looking at every individual customer, every individual transaction. What is their value now? What is the value we can project for them based on everything we see in your historic data, based on the characteristics of those customers? And all of that we can then, because we do that on a per customer basis, we can look for meaningful trends and meaningful segmentation within the data, whether that's for targeting or for bidding. I threw out there the projected value. So a lot of our customers don't operate in a, e-commerce widget space where it's a $120 transaction and they're out. It's a lot of, online education, people spending time thinking through their decision-making and figuring out, or do I have the budget for this, or do I need to apply for funding? SaaS companies. So often you're looking at recurring revenue models or long latency to close. So especially with the way ad networks optimize now, a lot of that is based on real-time or as close to real-time data as possible. So if you're just going off of, hey, I generated a whole bunch of leads, you can generate a whole bunch of leads and spend a lot of money on that for a long time before you even know was that worth it? Were those good leads? Were those bad leads? And so we, have a system of building out some custom models for all of our clients. So we ingest their customer data and their transaction data, and essentially develop a feedback loop directly into the ad networks so that we can see, based on the activity that just happened, what's the expected value of that. Let's give that back to the ad networks so that they know and they can go find more of those higher value ones and not overpay for the lower value ones.
Interesting. So your conversion events are segmented in a way. Like if one of your clients has $1,000 person that they sign versus a $20,000 person, you're telling the ad network, okay, this is a high ticket customer. Like we can afford to spend more on acquisition here
Yeah.
on like an individual basis or like a segmented basis.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And it's not even at the audience level. So it isn't, these people are bucketed into this high value segment, and these people, it's each individual customer gets fed back. Because we know Google and Meta, they have access to way more data than we ever will or would ever hope to have on people's behaviors and interests and, their affinities and interactions in different places. So we don't want to make any assumptions in our data. We know that if we try and presuppose what a trend in the data means and really try and build the campaigns around that, which I think is what digital marketing has been up until very, very recently. It's, here's this trend. Okay, let's build the campaign and structure it around these types of people and give them that messaging. It's not really the case anymore. Now it's more, okay, with modern ad networks, you need to give the ad network all the components. They need to be relevant. They need to be thoughtful. You need to consider the user journey and still who you're targeting. But you really want to, instead of, A/B testing for the perfect message or the perfect creative, you want to provide, here are a bunch of different messages that may be relevant. Here's a bunch of different creative options that may be relevant. And now here's some really, really crystal clear data signals so that the AI on the back end of the ad networks knows exactly what it is you're asking for and what you're after. And then you're giving that tool all the different pieces it needs to produce the best outcome for you. And it's always a work in progress, but it gets better and better every day. So
Interesting. And I'm curious what the kind of steps are when you onboard a new client, because it sounds like you guys are really involved at the high level, the financial level for your clients to look at like how much do we need to be investing, what does it look like, but then also all the way into like the granular level of that segmentation, optimizing the ad networks with this data that you're feeding it back. What does it look like to work with you guys? What is the journey that your clients go through in order to get good results?
yeah, so the conversation really starts from day -5 or in the sales conversation. I'm not talking to prospective clients. We're not talking to prospective clients about, so what does your ad messaging look like and what assets are you working with? It's like, what are you trying to achieve? What are your goals? What are the margins you're operating with? What have you tried so far? What's getting in your way? What's your sales process like? A lot of times we have experience diving in on the sales process because maybe marketing is absolutely killing it. We're getting you the qualified leads, but they're not closing, or your sales team is overwhelmed because there's this, this step in the funnel where you really need to have somebody qualifying or routing your leads for you because the sales team is just wasting their time on, sifting through those lower quality calls, or they're losing confidence. Like just the ways in which we weigh in, it's really meeting our clients wherever they are, learning as much as we can about their business. So once they sign on with us, we talk through what our process is. They sign on. One of the first things we do is have the team is going to be working with that client, do a whole bunch of research about them and put together a big list of questions about their business. So like, I want to make absolute certain that I understand what it is you're trying to achieve and what we have to work with to achieve that. And, what are the constraints around this? So we need to understand, what are your cash flow constraints as a business? Because our goal is to figure out like how high is up for this client. And it's helpful for us to know, like, at what point are you going to say, I can't even afford to run this test? Like, it's methodical and it's financially driven, and it's, we want to be managing risk, but we also don't want to miss opportunity to grow the business. So we map out everything. Also, what's your terminology, and who are the stakeholders in your company, who's going to be making decisions about your marketing budget and whether this is working or not. Depending on who we're talking to and who brings us in, it might be, I'm the digital marketing manager at this company. And so it's like, okay, great. What questions are you getting from your boss? What questions is your boss getting from the CFO? Like, what is that? What are you under pressure to provide for people, so that we can help sort of, fill those gaps and smooth that transition for the business growth. So if it's not the digital marketing manager and it's the CEO, okay, great. Then we can just hear it straight from you. What is it that you want here? And from the beginning, really establish a relationship of clear, candid feedback also. So we're professionals in the space. We're not all that interested in, just, okay, whatever you say, that's fine. Our mission is not to make the clients happy. Our mission is to help our clients grow their business. And so sometimes that means giving challenging feedback, but we really seek out partnerships where that is valued, and we work really hard to establish trust with all of our clients, so that it's not a matter of right and wrong and bruised egos, but a matter of we're all on the same team and trying to accomplish the same thing, and here's what's getting in the way of that.
100%.
Would add to that, just in terms of like expectations for onboarding, for like more on like the tactical execution side. Like Emma was saying, we start out with that, like the team is going to try to understand your business, your goals, like what are constraints to growth and any of the barriers or things that you foresee coming up as an issue early on. But from there, we're really going to dive into their customer data so that we can start to understand like, who are your customers? And oftentimes we find that like they'll tell us like, oh, these are our customers. And then once we actually start digging in, it's like, actually your high value customers are these other people, So like we want to fact check all of that with the actual data and start to, like Emma was mentioning before, like we can work with any tech stack. We have an internal senior programmer who can ingest any of that data, and we start to build out our own models. The team starts to build out like, here's where I would start, whether that's specific ad networks and audiences, or if it's like, hey, I really think that you should work on making these couple of tweaks to the landing page before we start sending ads there, because we're concerned about it not being clear how they should interact on the web page. Like we're going to weigh in on things that we think is going to prevent you from converting that traffic as well. So it really depends on where they're at. If their website's like good to go, it's like, all right, let's get ads running. This is where we think your audience is going to be best reached. And it's going to look slightly different for every one of our clients.
Very cool. And I'm interested more about the models too that you mentioned there, because I think that's something kind of unique to you guys. Like, what is the function of the model when you onboard a client? Like, is that model the one that's feeding the data back with the different segmented like feedback loops and the projecting the value of the client, or what actually does the model do?
Yeah, there are usually multiple models involved. So we have, some basic financial models that we essentially want to take, okay, here's how our client is making money, and make sure we understand from, the point of paying for an impression in an ad network all the way through to them retaining that customer and making money forever and ever and ever. What are all of those steps? And again, going back to the goal, what do those, different rates through that funnel or costs through that funnel need to look like in order for us to hit their goal, versus where are they now? So what is their actual close rate compared to what does it need to be? What's their actual conversion rate compared to what it needs to be? So there's that sort of, here's the business model. Then there's the financial and predictive models, and that's more of the segmented modeling that feeds directly into our bid and target strategy and the ad networks. And so a lot of what we're doing right now, it used to be, okay, set your CPC bid or your CPM bid in the ad network based on your audience values or how you're feeling that day or whatever, however people wanted to set them. much more of the bid strategy right now is actually the value strategy and is focused on importing conversion value data directly into the ad networks. As I mentioned before, a lot of times you don't know the full value of a conversion at the time someone interacts with your website. And if you wait to see what the value is, you're likely getting to the point where, well, the ad network doesn't even care about that data point anymore because it's more than a week old. And so that, might as well be the Stone Ages, for the ad network. So, what we want to do is see from the data our clients provide to us and that we have access to, how can we get better and better and better at predicting when I get a single conversion, okay, what's the value of this going to be? And then feed that back to the network. Then on the other side, looking at now, what are we telling the network to achieve? Are we telling the network, you need to get as much conversion value as possible, and this is the return on ad spend we need to see? Okay, how does that return on ad spend the network thinks it's getting compared to reality? Like, we're, again, tying everything back to what's actually being achieved. Every ad network is going to take credit for as much as they can and, not stretch the truth. I don't mean for it to sound like it's a nefarious thing, but it's, I think that the ad networks, and especially the more AI driven they are, have this energy of like a really over enthusiastic intern who's like, yeah, put me in, coach. I am ready to work. Let's go. And you can give them very literal instructions and they'll say like, yeah, totally, absolutely. I'll go build you a house. And then they go off and they build you a little model house. And you're like, no, I meant build me a whole, oh, you meant a whole house. Like, you need to be really specific about your instructions and also continue to like check in and verify, because really the ad networks are in business to spend your ad budget. And so that's how they're making money. They want to do it well so that you keep spending money with them, but if you're not paying close attention and you're trying to leverage some of those tools that can make you more competitive, you can also wind up spending a whole lot of money and then realize down the line, oops, that was not a good use of money. And so we set up those models really to create really, really clear instructions combined with, the settings and the campaigns and how we're applying the network best practices to the actual campaign setup and things that I think are more classically thought of as the digital marketing tactics. But really it's the combination of those things. We want to, find your audience at the right price, do everything we can to make that traffic cheaper for you, do everything we can to make that audience more valuable for you. It's, the big financial model and then the individual predictive models and big models, because also not every ad network has that ability to feed the conversion data directly in and set the return on ad spend targets and those sorts of things. So we also need to have the ability to set targets for whatever level of bidding is available. So that might be a cost per action target, it might be a cost per click bid or something. We need to be able to see from all the different channels, all the different levers available from each channel. And then that gets even more interesting when we start to factor in the things that we can't directly track to those networks. So we also have models in place to help us figure out what is the incremental value being driven from a specific channel or ad network that might not be trackable, or that the ad network might be reporting, but is not actually incremental value. And so, it's really layers of models that all fit into this big infrastructure of incrementality and cause and effect between marketing investment and financial outcomes.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, because I think that's a big question too. Is like, I'm pouring money into ads, but then what if they just look up my company name on Google and find me through another source and stuff?
Yeah.
So there has to be a way, I guess, and you guys have cracked it, I guess, on how to model that uptick is due to factor X advertising dollars being spent here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one of the benefits to grounding everything we do in the financial outcomes is that we can get that question of, well, is this just, would I have been getting that traffic anyways if I wasn't running this ad? And it isn't like, no, you have to run the ads because what we do is the ads. It's like, I don't know, let's test it. Let's see, let's find out what is the added value of that. And, let's actually put a test in place and good measurement in place, and we can understand if that's worth it. And so it makes it really easy to be on the side of our clients because we care about the same thing.
Very cool.
Yeah, and I think that example that you just gave, Matt, is so common, especially as you start to get into like social media channels or programmatic channels where it's like, yeah, if someone's looking for a solution, they're going to Google it and maybe see an ad, and that's much more, they're going to click on it, easier to follow that path. But if someone's scrolling on Facebook at night and they happen to see that, oh, that's interesting, they might check that out later. They might go back into Google and search for it. They never clicked on that ad. You don't know that that's what caused them to actually be interested in what you're offering. And so we do a lot of testing around that to be able to incorporate that into our modeling to understand, like, because if everyone did that, it'd be like, oh, well, we might as well stop running this Facebook ad because no one's clicked on it. Nothing's coming from it, when it's like, well, that Google search would have never happened if they hadn't seen it. So that's a really common thing that we deal with and work to measure.
Yeah, very cool. I'm also interested, like I see a ton of value in the predictive modeling in terms of like the client lifetime value and stuff, especially in SaaS or anything with a long sales cycle or like a lifetime value that's spread there. Do you guys predominantly work with SaaS companies, or what types of businesses do you find you get the most or the best results for?
We particularly love working with SaaS companies because their data is really fun and interesting. But they're by no means the only businesses we work with. And even on the e-commerce side, a lot of what we've done is, just looking at a per purchase basis. Okay, that's cool and everything. That's interesting. But how many of these customers are repeat customers, and how much impact are we actually having on re-engaging them versus their, just actually acquiring them as a new customer? And so, SaaS is sort of our bread and butter. It's where we, I think, stand out the most among other people in the marketing space because of our approach. But online education is another one. The combination of the price point, the audience, the targeting that's available, and the value stream for that as well. We've worked with clients who have, let's say they don't have like an evergreen offering or an on-demand offering. They have an actual course that closes at a specific time. They're, rather than just, okay, we're going to generate X number of applications. It's like, no. If there's a specific goal for that course wave, let's see if we can plot out, all right, if we just follow the natural curve of when people apply relative to when they register, how many applications do we need to see and by when? And how many registrations should we see and by when, in order to know if we're on track or we need to make adjustments? And so it's always, our team is just a bunch of beautiful, wonderful, nice nerds. And they're not really content to like, yeah, I don't know, you got the leads that you said you wanted. It's like, yeah, but did those leads become what you wanted? So I think there aren't many industries where we can't find opportunities to do that. Like, yeah, but what about this? And what's the next level of this thing? It's just SaaS tends to be the one where it sort of comes ready-made. We love talking about payback periods. We love talking about, post-marketing gross profit after some payback period, post-payback period date, and, helping SaaS companies scale. They often arrive also with, hey, I have this giant chunk of cash. And so how do I use that effectively to actually grow my business? And with that in mind, there could be a lot of like, you could spend all that on just like branding attempts and surely your business would grow. But it's really fun to like, okay, cool. These are more puzzle pieces we have to work with. Let's map out, what does that growth path look like? How are we going to know what's working and by when, so that we can, really step on the gas. Like that's often a big part of the SaaS game too, is it's not just about growth. It's about growing as quickly as you can, but you have to do that sustainably or you'll wind up like, I just burnt through, all of the money that I had for marketing, and I don't know if it worked and why it worked, which parts of it worked. And so, again, we can help businesses all over, but there are just so many opportunities for us to add value to the conversation and the business growth on the SaaS and online education front as well, just by nature of their businesses.
100%. And there's definitely a huge need for that too, especially in like that funded VC space too, because like a down round, or if they don't actually invest appropriately into growth and show result from that, it can just be the end of the company.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's something that we've been able to provide to some of our clients also, is when they're going for that next round of funding, we get to be a partner for them. And, let's apply our predictive models and let's do some, what if sort of scenarios of here's how we can see the provable, repeatable growth mapping out in the future. And here's how that could look if you have this much more to invest, or, and we can help actually put some numbers behind that and help them on their funding journey. Yeah, this is a really fun job that we have.
I think just as like a broader way to answer your question, Matt, that isn't necessarily like, because Emma's right, like it really can apply to any industry. I think the way that we often talk about it, to try to narrow that down a little bit, because it's just like, we can work with anyone. It's like, well, no, not anyone, but really any business that utilizes their website to acquire new customers and ideally has a national or global scale and is really ready to scale, ready to invest in marketing and has the ability and capacity to scale up their operations.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm curious too, to switch gears a little bit here. Like you guys talked about some of the really cool, unique kind of proprietary models and almost, I guess, like AI uses and stuff. I'm curious, like where else, both kind of Emma on the strategy sales side and then Courtney on like the operation side, where else have you guys found good use cases for AI in your own business?
Yeah, so I can kick that off on the operations side. There's a few things that are already underway. Obviously, we're constantly testing and trying to find new things that might help us be more efficient with our time. But that really is the focus when we think about that operationally. We don't want to replace any of the knowledge or experience that our staff has with AI, and instead kind of how do we complement that with some efficiency and time savings. So we definitely utilize things like ChatGPT for just like helping with written communication and things like that. Our team knows what they want to say, but we're in such a niche part of the marketing world that we want to make sure it's really clear when we're communicating that to different partners or clients or things like that. So our team members definitely utilize it to ensure that they're being clear and communicating well. We internally utilize Fathom, which helps, we record client calls and internal team strategy meetings and things like that, so that there's record of those calls and clear next steps that can easily be handed off and people can run with. And then probably the thing that I'm most excited about is us building our own internal GPT to help with, some of the simpler operational work and ideation. So things like keyword brainstorming or audience brainstorming, competitor analysis, things like that. And then, it's almost like that's our more senior team members like intern, and it can be handed off to them to then they can like, all right, we have sort of this broader idea from our own GPT, because we've worked through this to really hone in on how we approach those types of tasks, but then they can apply their own knowledge of their clients and their skill set and the experience in the ad networks to those ideas. So it kind of helps speed up some of those processes up a bit.
Very cool. I love the internal GPT idea too. We've even seen some people doing them like for each client too, where they have it like built for each client to ideate on ad strategy, messaging, like tie into that data and stuff that you guys collect and stuff, as well as just like a helper for work on specific clients and their strategies.
Yeah, I think it can be huge for knowledge sharing too. So one of our dreams is that I don't think is too bright on the road, but is having a tool where we can essentially document all of the tools and custom code we've developed and use cases and problems that we've solved and all that, so that when people have questions about, what is specifically happening in this tool, we don't need to have everybody have a background in Python in order to understand the nuances of what's happening, but they can easily search, do we have a tool already that does this, that we can, ask our programmer to, hey, could you take this and just sort of, update it to do X, Y, Z? Or, I think over the years, we've tried so many things. Like we've tested, we've measured, there are all these results, but I'm definitely guilty of this. I have a tendency to like, okay, I don't need that information anymore. I got what I needed out of it. And then just like, and then a couple years later, it's, has anybody tested, whatever network? Has anybody tried that? And like, yeah, it did. And then I don't remember what happened with that, and so even having a place that's sort of a repository for what have we tried, we do retrospectives on a lot of things. So like, what did we try? What was the result? What do we think went well? What didn't go so well? What would we do differently next time? And then having a home for all of that information that's easily searchable, or that you can, then synthesize into next steps, or, apply to a slightly different situation without having to, like, let me think back through every memory of everything I've tried over the last 11 years working at this company. It's not feasible. So, yeah, I think as a team, we're really embracing that mentality of, but what if I just had an assistant who could, like, what I mean by this? I have this idea, I have this thought, but could you make that sound better? Or could you pull those things, go and do this thing that could be very time consuming and, kind of menial in nature for me, so that I can focus on the, more strategic side of things.
100%. And also to like to your point on, looking at all the past things you've tried and like the context on that too. It's also like really good AI use cases. Like it's so good with good data in, good data out. And that's another thing we see too, is like a lot of people in this space, they're trying to like use GPT with no context on the problem. They just don't get that good a result. Or it sounds like you guys are on the right track there, like custom GPTs with specific data and stuff with a specific task or use case.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the coolest ones we have at the moment, so I mentioned creative testing and how, we're seeing less applicability of old school like A/B testing. So we have a new GPT that our team developed that tests out creative components and again ties it through to the actual financial outcomes. So it looks at the metrics all along the way. But instead of it being, let's this message versus this message, it's like, let's test 20 different, combinations of things and see, in terms of the color, the tone, the type of image, the specific wording, the call to action, put all of that in together without having to sit there and like, let me calculate this call to action and let me just identify what those variables are and test out the outcomes in isolation as well as in combination, so that we can understand what's the next round of testing we want to do. Like what's the next iteration we want to try on our creative in these campaigns. So yeah, we have a very imaginative team, and it's been really fun. And basically since ChatGPT became available to us, being able to see people like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, and like, yeah, try that. And then, it's a reality within, days or weeks. It's, we have to be really careful about data privacy. So we take that really seriously. And regardless of the settings available in ChatGPT and the, what we're told about how the data is used and all that, we still won't upload like customer data or personally identifiable information from our clients or anything like that into those tools, just for the sake of like limiting any possibility of exposure or anything like that. But there's still that doesn't really hold us back much at all. So yeah, it's been a really, really fun new era basically at Working Planet.
Very cool. I'm curious, like how do LLMs fit, or like how automated is that process to help like identify which variables feed into results? You're not A/B testing like 100 headlines, colors, tones, and stuff. Like I'm curious how that system works and like how far you've taken the AI and automation piece as part of that process.
I'm tempted to say I'm at the point where our team has become more advanced at what they do than I ever was at those things. And so, like, we have a senior specialist in-house whose job is, he manages a couple clients, but then he's really our go-to person for, hey, I want an AI-based tool. I'm meeting with him after this call, actually. I want a tool that can help me put proposals together for sales calls and for sales conversations, because I wind up doing, mix and matching different combinations of, okay, so it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that and combine that in here. But, it's a fairly manual process, but is the kind of thing where, like, man, if I just had an assistant and I could say, could you put a proposal together that's sort of like this, but put this, this, and this in there instead? And, then that would be great. And that's like, oh, that's a perfect thing to bring in a chat GPT. And so he's really our go-to resource for, hey, is this possible? How can we train that? And oftentimes within a day or two of one of those, hypothetical requests going out, he said, yeah, I already made something for you. Here, it's in our shared account. You could just go in and run this whenever you want. And, especially research-based tasks or things that, again, you're really clear on the blueprint and the concept. And then the sort of nitty-gritty behind the scenes is like, I don't really need to worry about that as much. I have team members who have become really, really good at actually making that happen. So fortunately, I can't geek out too much on the specifics of the LLM, but yeah, I can tell you my team is amazing.
And I feel like that's like the dream as well. It's like, as a CEO, to be like, oh, my team's like better than me. Like, I trust them to do everything.
Yeah. As long as I can keep my insecurity in check, I can just really bask in the glory that is having a team that is absolutely like above and beyond what I could have achieved or ever did achieve in those same roles. So yeah, so it's just an amazing team.
Love it. I'm curious, Courtney, on your side, where do you kind of see things going with, the operational piece and how AI fits into that?
Yeah, I think that, oftentimes we think, and this is really the type of agency we've been for a very long time, is that you would bring in, lower level, newer people, and a good percentage of them would turn out after a year or two, and a few of them would continue on with us. And what we're really shifting towards is like breaking that mold and we have a very senior team, like Emma was talking about, which is amazing. And I feel like we're just reaching new heights because of their seniority and expertise and knowledge and curiosity and all of that. And so I see AI helping us continue that, because obviously there's overhead that comes with having a senior team. But I think that, if we can utilize AI to help us with some of that more like repetitive work and things like that, it's like we can really continue to leverage their experience and their knowledge to a different level, so that they're not bogged down with some of those, smaller, more repetitive manual tasks. So I see that helping us actually continue to drive a more senior team forward.
I think that's a great route too, because it's like there's a lot of easy lifts and stuff like menial work. I'm sure that you can start to automate slowly, but then still retain that like senior expertise or like someone who really knows the high level and what they're trying to do and stuff. Utilizing those tools to be 2-3 times more efficient.
Yeah. And I think that, people say it all the time, but we definitely agree with the statement of like, AI can be scary, sure, but it's like it's only as good as what you put into it. And so if you have people who are taking what's coming out of the AI tools and don't really know what they're doing, it's like, well, then that really didn't help anything. So like I think you need senior people to be the ones taking it from there and being able to apply their knowledge. But also making sure that like as they QA some of these new tools and things like that, that they even know what to be looking for and know, where things could potentially go wrong, so that it's not a like, yeah, just set that tool up, forget about it, run it, pass that off to the client. And like, no, there needs to be real review and understanding and ensuring that things are accurate.
Mm-hmm. So there needs to be that feedback loop, 100%.
Definitely.
Awesome. And I'm curious, Emma, on your side too, kind of where do you see it going and changing it from like a high level business strategy perspective? Where do you see it going for the next 2 years as AI becomes more and more a part of that?
Yeah, I think, well, we're experiencing now, I don't know if it's like, yeah, that is that one era, that one phase shift, or if this is like, this is going to continue on, but there's just um, this feeling of unboundedness, or really being able to think outside the box. So even in terms of, what services can we provide and what value can we provide to our clients? And like, well, we could do that if only we could solve for this. And in the past, that might have been like, I don't know, that's going to be, expensive, and we don't really have we have to hire someone else just to manage that. And it's like, well, hold on, maybe that's something we could do with some of these tools. And so I think some of that ties back to what Courtney was saying, just having such a senior and experienced team and inviting the team really into like, how do you want to be spending your time? Like, what do you see? Where do you see the value? What do you think could happen? And I think there's just a lack of, I don't want to say lack of rules, because that makes it sound like it's just a total free for all and anything can happen. Also, we love having access to your financial data. Like, that seems like a scary combination. But, we have the specific guidelines that we operate in and great alignment on what it is we're trying to achieve. And then all of a sudden you have, not a hammer and a screwdriver anymore, but like, I have a power drill and a nail gun. Like, now let's take this to the next level and let's see what can we do about this. So I'm just hearing a lot more of our conversations internally shifting to like, well, hold on, what would it take to make that happen? And finding more than ever, there's so much more that's possible, and so much more that we can imagine that it becomes a reality in, relatively short order, where we may have never even broached that as an opportunity. So, yeah, I'm really curious to see if years from now we look back, we're like, remember that one like 2-year stretch where it just, or if it'll be like, this is the start of how things just continue to expand from here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some great opportunities to add more value to clients, 100%. Like,
Yeah.
deliver faster, give them additional tools. We can do more testing with the same resources.
Yeah.
So many possibilities.
Yeah.
There, 100%.
Yeah. Even in terms of training, whether it's for our staff or for our clients, we have so much knowledge as an organization, and so much, skill and expertise, and being able to, not withhold that from our clients in a way that's like, that's proprietary, that's top. It's like, I mean, there's so much to know. There's so much to do. Yeah. Why don't we put together a little resource that explains to you, here's what's happening here, so that you have a better understanding and you can make better decisions too. So even things like that, where it might have been, this is kind of a big lift, it'll be better value for you if we spend our time focusing on your campaigns than focusing on, developing a training for you. Now it's like, I mean, we could do both, because it's, we've found ways to make that, fairly low lift for us. And if that's going to make life easier for our clients, then yeah, sure, we're happy to do that. And we just, we have a team of people who are achievers, I guess. Like, they're not happy unless they feel like, yeah, I did that. I did a great job, and so just giving people more options to achieve is a lot of fun, and seeing what it is they choose to do with that. It's really great. And I think our clients are really benefiting from that, and enjoying seeing that as well.
Love it. Just to end us off here, I'd love to hear from each of you on this last question, which is like, what advice would you have for other marketers trying to keep up or figure out how to best use AI?
I think I would say to not be afraid of it. I think a lot of people are nervous that it's going to like steal their job, or it's going to do, I don't really know what the fear is, but I think that my advice is really to like not be afraid to test it out. Like, nothing, you can always do that in a small scale and just get used to it. I think it took me a while too to utilize it on a regular basis, but I think once you see the power that's there, you adopt it a lot more quickly.
Yeah, I think that's true. And not to take a slightly less optimistic tone, but I think all of that's true as long as you're focused on the right things. So, if you have, if you view your value as a marketer as producing things, producing copy, producing, creative, I might be a little bit nervous. If you view your value as a marketer as helping to grow businesses, helping to, spread the word about a given business and engage the right people with the right message at the right time and at the right price, then yeah, don't be afraid. Just keep that as sort of your compass as you're going along. Make sure everything is really tied to the right outcomes and meaningful outcomes. And then yeah, dive in.
Awesome. That's a perfect last word to end us off here. So Courtney, Emma, really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you for the great conversation and for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Matt.